All right, let's see if I can angle this just a little bit better. Just a tad. I can get away with it. Oh, no, it's not going to let me do it. How about like right there? All right, well, it's not going to be a perfect angle, but that's okay. All right, it looks like we're live, and it looks like the flux capacitor is fluxing, and we're going along. We'll wait till a couple people join in with us, and then we'll get started. But it's been a while since we've done a live, so it's kind of cool. We're going to have a little fun here. I think people are joining in, so let's begin. I'm happy to introduce Chloe Martin, and she is our Bowley intern, a UMW student. And are you a senior?
I am.
Okay, so a senior in the Historic Preservation Department, and she has agreed to help me today, which is very helpful, so I appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm just going to show you a couple things today. The first thing I want to show you that I don't know that I've shown before is some of these shoe buckles. And I know what you're saying. You're saying to yourself, shoe buckles, that's really boring. But they're not boring. Now, I'll tell you why. Yeah, so if you take a look at these shoe buckles, okay, these shoe buckles, they belong to James Monroe. Now, this one in particular is silver, right? And it's got some really kind of neat sort of decoration going on it, some carved decoration in there. And what it actually would have been carved and then cast with the silver. So what that means is that whoever made the silversmith that made these did not actually engrave it after the fact, but they actually made an engraving first, and then they molded it, and then they cast it. So these would have been cast in, and that's how they created that sort of kind of cool design. Now, something that's sort of interesting about shoe buckles, okay, is that when you think of shoe buckles, you think of like, the colonial period or Revolutionary War, well, or just the old days in general. Well, the buckles themselves are actually, shoe buckles actually became in fashion around the mid-17th century, believe it or not. And before then, they were actually using ribbons and tying just like we do today. So when you think about it, you're like, oh, back in the old days, they did nothing but shoe buckles. That's not true. They actually, for a long, long period of time, were actually using ribbons and shoestrings just like we do today. And then the buckle came into fashion, and you started to see a rise in the aristocracy. And here, we'll show this one again up here. Actually, let's show that one up there. A rise in the aristocracy started wearing shoe buckles and became more and more sort of decorative and sort of fancy. And that continued along, and that sort of trend continued all the way up until, you guessed it, the French Revolution. And of course, after the French Revolution, that sort of fancy buckle refinery, the fancy buckle refinery became sort of less fashionable, right? And so because they didn't want to associate themselves with that aristocracy, and so the shoe buckle became less prominent. And you started getting more shoestrings like you do today. Now, I will say that the buckle continued to be in fashion, especially in sort of court attire, more fancy dress, that sort of thing, all the way up to modern day. But the buckle itself had its heyday right around James Monroe's time period. So you're looking, at the late 1700s, early 1800s, you saw a lot of, the shoe buckles, especially, in the early part. So anyway, but I wanted to show you this, okay, because this is kind of interesting. Clay, if you want to show this book, okay. What's going on here? Okay, you guys see that shiny sparkle? All right, what's happening there? All right, that is, as you may have guessed, that is in fact rhinestones. And yes, the rhinestones, thanks, Clay, the rhinestones did belong to James Monroe. And so I know what you're thinking. It's like, there's no way that could be true because Elvis invented rhinestones. Well, no, it actually isn't true. When we think of rhinestones, we think of like the 70s and Las Vegas and all that. But rhinestones were actually widely considered to be invented by a guy named George Strauss. And George Strauss he lived in the region of France. And the rhinestone itself is named from crystals that were found around the Rhine River. So let me tell you that again. So the rhinestone gets the name literally from the Rhine River. But they were widely considered to be sort of invented by the guy named George Strauss. And he had a particular way of doing it. And Chloe, if you want to go ahead and check out this sort of mixture and way he did this.
So So he used mixtures of bismuth and thallium to improve the refractive quality of his imitations, and he altered their colors with metal salts. The imitations were, in his view, so similar to real gems that he invented the concept of the simulated gemstone to describe them. He considerably improved his gems' brilliance by gluing metal foil behind them, and this foil was later replaced with a vapor-deposited mirror coating.
Okay, so you think about sort of the deviousness of that. What do you, if you could hold up another, think about the deviousness of what's going on here. They're imitating gemstones to try to get that fancy look by actually putting metal coatings on the back and faceting them like diamonds. But they're not actually diamonds, so they give that sort of sparkle off effect. So you think about that, they're actually sort of faking it till they make it kind of thing. So they sort of faked a wealth that didn't actually exist. And that continued on throughout the years. And the crystal itself is a glass, but they call it, the difference between glass and crystal is the crystal is going to have a higher lead content. So it's going to have that more reflective sort of surface, which makes it perfect for this sort of thing. Because if you think about it, if you ever seen like crystal glass, like a really heavy crystal glass goblet, when you look at it, it has sort of an almost reflective quality, even without this backup backup metal filler that goes in the back. So it's really sort of perfect for that sort of thing. Anyway, so if you think about sort of, I love the fact that when you think of rhinestones, you think of Elvis and you think of like the 70s, but really we have been tacky for centuries. It's been going on for all these years. You know, we've been doing it for years and years and years. And there you have it, James Monroe's, and yes, these belong to James Monroe. James Monroe's rhinestone and silver buckles. And let me show you an example of a shoe. Here's a shoe without the buckle, right? Unfortunately, we don't actually have shoes that belong to James Monroe. Those are all been rotted away, are gone. Fortunately, we do have plenty of shoes that belong to his wife or his daughters. But the shoes themselves, the only thing that's actually left of the shoes are these belt buckles. You show that one more time. The silver, these wonderful belt buckles, or not belt, these wonderful shoe buckles that we had. That they outlasted everything. All the rot from the shoes, you know, forget it. These buckles are made to last a nuclear winter. So they're gonna outlast us all for sure. I did want to show you. I wanted to show you one more thing. We did have a bunch of requests to show the sword again, and I know I'm kind of biased towards swords, but I'm glad we're getting this request. People really wanted to see this again, so I am going to show this. This is James Monroe, and they actually sort of relate in a little bit of a way. This is James Monroe's court sword, and it is called a small sword, for those that haven't already seen that. If you could show just the very end of it, yeah. If you can see all that, look at what's going on here. You have this cast silver, and I'll hold it up as a comparison. See that sort of silver kind of thing? They had that cast silver metal on the hilt. And that is very much in line with that style, that sort of style that James Monroe is going for. So there you have it. I also had a request. Someone really wanted to see the baby shoes again. So I brought out the baby shoes because I know you wanted to see this. Look at this little thing. People are like, what are you talking about, baby shoes? I'm literally talking about baby shoes. There they are. This belonged to Mariah Monroe when she was just a kid, or just a little toddler. And they're made out of leather. And as you can see, they're starting to get the shoelace. There's no buckles on there, right? So, you know, of course, the styles would have been different for babies, of course. But the point is that, you know, you started getting later into the 1800s, or as you start getting into the century, from the turn of the 1700s to the 1800s, you started seeing more and more shoelaces and things like ribbons rather than our good friend, the buckles. I think there was something else that someone wanted to see. Also, no. Oh, the shoes there. Someone requested to see the slippers again. So I'm going to show these. These slippers, again, you're not going to see the buckles in there, right? This was after the French Revolution. This is during the Regency period. This belonged to Elizabeth Monroe, James Monroe's wife. And you see this sort of sleek design. There's no buckles on them or anything like that, and no fancy rhinestones. They're sort of calming it down, you know, sort of maybe an anti-aristocracy kind of thing going on. So there you go. Well, that is what I have to show you today. In summary, we have the silver belt buckles, silver shoe buckles, and the shoe buckles started coming into fashion into the 1700s, or the 17th century, and became high fashion around the late 1700s. And then we have the rhinestone, which literally are actually rhinestone. They're actually crystal glass that are faceted like diamonds to look like it. And then we have the quartz sword, which has a sort of similar vibe to the cast silver of the belt of the buckle, the shoe buckle. And then we have the baby slipper, little tiny baby shoe, aw. And then we have Elizabeth Monroe's slipper that you requested to see again. There it is. I might add that if you come into the museum, we currently have a wonderful pair of slippers on display right now in this new exhibit that I put up that's based on the Curator chat. So if you come in, you can check them out, and I'm always happy to show you. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can join us for the next time that we do this. Thank you so much to Chloe Martin, our Bowley intern and UMW student, senior at University of Mary Washington. And we will see you next time. Let me see if I can finish this.